This is Skid Row, a street of forgotten men and women. Some of them slide down from high places. Some start here. Nobody works up to it. This is the bottom. I was here because of an urgent telephone call I'd received from Father Picard earlier that day. We had met during the war when he was connected with the French underground, and many Americans owed him their lives. After the war, he'd come to America and started a little mission on the row. It was open to all, whether they needed someone to talk to, food to eat, or even prayers. Father Picard was upset. He said he had read I was in town, and that in a way I might be the answer to his prayers. A man named Dan McGee was to die in the next 36 hours for having killed a cop. He told me that he didn't believe Dan was guilty. He didn't know if I could help because time was very short, but he begged me to try. I asked a lot of questions, and Father Picard tried to answer them. Dan was a strange man, and cruel only to himself. He was an ex-Marine, had even been given a citation for duty above and beyond. Skid Row had claimed him because, as the father put it, Dan had seen too much in too short a time. If it had been anyone else but Father Picard, I would have said no. Instead, I asked him the obvious question. Women. He hesitated, so I asked him again. Women? In particular?
In particular, one, Mary.
No other name, just Mary.
Just Mary. Or if it helps, the other Mary.
It helps. I thought I'd start with Johnny, for instance. A character who called himself the mayor of Skid Row. Johnny sold tip sheets at the racetrack. If you want to see the mayor, you go to City Hall. So I went to Johnny's City Hall, the Del Monte Cafe. Thanks.
Mike.
Hey, Johnny. You want something?
Just a bowl of stew. A big one.
What's the matter, on the short line?
Yeah, Tap City. Haven't had a winner in 3 days. The suckers are all on the free list.
When I saw you at the track, I thought you were in the money.
Yeah, I was till I started betting my own tips. What can I do for you, Mike?
Tell me about Dan McGee.
Dan McGee. Never heard of him. How about you?
They come and go. That's how it is, eh?
Yep, that's how it is, Mike. Life down here is cheap. Death don't mean much. People welcome it. In the meantime, everybody's got something to hide, and the less digging around there is, the better they like it. Now, for instance, if you want to meet some of the talent...
I'm ready, Johnny.
Fix him up, Monty.
Are you the Monty on the sign?
Sure, Del Monte, that's me.
Tell him your real name, Monty. Go on, he's a friend of mine.
Delmar Montague.
That makes you a friend of mine.
Thanks, friend. I'll see who's available. There's Sadie. Oh, she's got a live one.
An out-of-town buyer. Wants to see how the other half lives.
I bet he sees it if he sticks with Sadie.
How about Fritzy?
No. Story goes with her.
I'm way ahead on stories.
There's Mary.
What's the matter with her?
She's hard to handle.
Acts like a $10 steak in a hamburger joint.
Who's that with her?
Fingers. He draws pitches.
Say, if Mary won't play, maybe he will.
an idea. Excuse me. May I join you?
For how long?
Let's start with 10 minutes.
Let's start with $5. What was it you wanted to talk about?
Dan McGee.
Never heard of him.
He's gonna die in a few hours for killing a cop. It happened around here about 8 months ago. He must have been quite a lad, this McGee. Pull a stunt like that and pass out with a gun in his hand. Yes, sir, he must have been a dilly.
He was
somebody we never heard of. Your time's up.
Not quite. Clever.
Keep it.
Thanks. See you around. It might be that I just didn't like Fingers, or maybe I was beginning to feel sorry for Dan McGee, the guy I didn't even know. One thing was for sure, I had places to go and people to talk to. I wanted to know more about Fingers and Mary. It might not help Dan, because maybe he was beyond help, but I owed some answers to Father Picard. When you've led my kind of life, you get to know all kinds of people, and they get to know you. It didn't take long to find out that before the trouble started, Mary was Dan McGee's girl. She'd followed him around like a faithful puppy. As for Fingers, the opinion was unanimous. He was rotten. He'd always been jealous of Dan, and now that Dan was gone, he'd taken over. I followed Mary and Fingers as they left the Del Monte Cafe. I watched them talk for a few seconds in front of her hotel, and finally Fingers left. Mary was about to have an unexpected visitor. Me. Expecting somebody else?
This is my home. I live here. I work at the Del Monte. If you want anything I got, see me there.
I want some information. You still owe me a couple of minutes.
Fingers gave you a sketch, didn't he? That ought to square it.
Is that the way he pays his way?
I can save us both a lot of trouble. When you work down here, you got to be somebody's girl. I'm Fingers' girl. Now let's take it from there.
Were you always Fingers' girl? The other Mary.
Crazy idea Fingers had.
Why?
I haven't had long hair since I can remember.
The man in the picture. That's not Fingers.
No? Who is he?
Dan McGee.
You're smarter than I thought you were.
You used to be Dan McGee's girl, and you never got over it. That's Fingers' girl, that, and that. That's Dan McGee's girl. And that sketch is Fingers' way of telling you he knows all about it.
What can I do about it?
Talk. Tell me about him.
He wasn't an easy guy to get along with. He drew a few bucks a month from the government. Enough to keep him in a glow. Then he thought he was charging ashore on some beachhead, waving that gun around and yelling crazy.
That night.
He was in the Del Monte building up a head of steam. I tried to take care of him, but he wouldn't let me, so I left. When I got back, the cop was dead and he was under arrest.
Couldn't he tell you what happened?
He never remembered anything when he came out of those fogs. Talked about crazy things. This time it was ties, white bow ties.
The kind you wear with tails?
Who knows? There were no white ties in the Del Monte when I left, and I'm sure the cop wasn't in evening clothes.
White ties. White bow ties. That's a rough one.
Do what you can for him, will you? I got a letter from him last week. He says in the past 8 months he's straightened himself out.
I hope he enjoys it. He's got about 30 hours left. I was surprised when I saw her in the mission chapel. And I realized that she, in her own way, was praying for Dan McGee.
Fingers came back last night. He'd had a long talk with Johnny, for instance. You're Michael Lanyard.
That's right.
Then you know how it is.
Yes, Mary. I know how it is. The bruise on her face told its own story, and I didn't like it. Fingers had given her a good working over, probably because she talked to me. The payoff I owed Fingers had to wait because I was trying to find out if Dan McGee had really killed a cop. And I didn't have much time left. White ties. None of it made sense. All I knew was that I didn't like a guy named Fingers. It was worth a try, so I headed for the Del Monte.
What do you want, Lanyard?
Dinner?
In a joint like this?
What's the matter with a joint like this?
Nothing. It's class for Skid Row, but you're a Sunset Strip man. Ciro's, LaRue, Macombo. You have dinner in your suite at the Beverly Hills Hotel or the Ambassador.
Any place named after a guy called Delma Montague deserves a complimentary play. What can I get to eat?
Beef stew, ham and eggs, small steak, coffee, and apple pie.
Ham and eggs. Eggs over easy, ham well done, huh?
When we serve ham and eggs, it's ham and eggs, period.
You're a fine artist, Fingers. Your work deserves something better than paper napkins.
The carriage trade gets a kick out of it. The napkins have the name of the joint in the corner.
How's business?
Fair. We get college kids in bunches, and every now and then somebody from uptown. Slumming for kicks.
Like after parties and receptions, huh?
Things like that. Seems to help some people to look at misery.
Thanks.
Not bad. What did you expect? Poison? We live on that stuff.
So do millions of other people. But they don't sit around feeling sorry for themselves.
Now, who are you talking about?
You. You and Dan McGee. A man you've got on your mind so much you're sketching him right now.
I thought you didn't know Dan McGee.
I don't. But I saw him last night. In a sketch called The Other Mary.
So you know. You know how I feel about him and Mary. You know I'll be glad when he dies tomorrow. What else do you think you know?
I know that his death won't solve your problem. Killing him won't take him out of Mary's mind.
I'll take care of that after he's gone. Now get out of here, will you?
too sure. But to a mixed-up guy, it could look like a tie. A white bow tie.
How about buying a gal a cup of coffee?
How about white ties? Should we talk about them? Funny what'll stick in a man's mind. White ties. White bow ties. You or I wouldn't think about that, would we? Only a crazy guy with a tormented mind could see the similarity. A crazy guy running around waving a pistol into the air, reliving a madness he can't forget.
Please, not so loud. Everyone will think we're crazy.
To a guy with about 12 hours to live. Unless we can help him. Let's go back to that night. Where were you sitting with your customer?
I was sitting here.
Where were his fingers?
He was in the next booth.
Dan?
He was everywhere. He was here, in the bar.
Why didn't somebody take the gun away from him? Why didn't somebody who loves him?
I'm sorry, Michael Lanyard.
The other Mary.
Mike! Mike, is that you? What happened, Mike?
White ties, Johnny. White bow tie.
You must have been crowding somebody, Michel. If not, they never would have tried it.
If Johnny hadn't found me when he did, I'd have passed out in that alley.
Yeah, by the time you've recovered, Dan McGee would have been dead and the case forgotten.
I'm sure now that Fingers did the killing. But I don't know if there's enough time left to prove it. I've got one edge. They won't expect to see me.
Oh, excuse me. Hello? Yes? Yes? The governor denied the stay of execution. Dan dies at noon.
That gives us 5.5 hours.
Pedro will be asleep for that long.
Maybe I can wake it up. Yeah. It's me. Take a good look. What kind of woman are you to sucker a man into drinking a cup of coffee when you know it's loaded with a Mickey? What happened to you? Where's your heart? Or did that sadistic sketch artist slap it out of you? Is that it? You like being slapped around? Speak up. I'm in a hurry. But I can take time to give a dame like you a real working over.
No. No, please, I can't take any more.
I asked you a question last night. Why didn't somebody take that gun away from Dan? Never mind, I'll answer that myself. Somebody did. Fingers. Is that it? What then?
Fingers and Dan went out in the alley.
Come on, what happened?
I don't know.
Where is Fingers?
He has a room back at the Del Monte. Where shall I go? I can't stay here.
Find Father Picard. and try and square yourself with his boss. Attaboy, Fingers. Lock yourself in. Try to forget what happens at noon. You look like you had a rough night. You had another one 8 months ago, didn't you? When you took away Dan McGee's gun. What happened out there in the alley? What happened between you and the cop? Did he push you around a little bit? Like this? And this? Like you slapped Mary because you knew you weren't half the man that Dan McGee was?
I thought I got rid of you last night.
About you, Michel.
I'm glad you're here, Father. Fingers has something to tell you.
You tell him, Lanyard. I'm awfully tired.
He killed the cop with McGee's automatic. When McGee passed out, he put the gun back in his hand. That's it, isn't it?
I didn't mean to kill him. It was an accident.
Yeah. Let's get to a phone.
Thank you, Michel.
He's lucky. Lucky the Fingers broke in time.
Oh, I saw Delmar Montaigu today. He wants to apologize for what happened in his place. He says that you are his friend, and his friends never get Mickeys.
Well, that's a fine time to tell me.
Oh, excuse me, Michel.
Sure, Father.
Marie, say, I was just about to have supper. Would you join me?
At first, you join us in a prayer, Father.